Okay, Derek, thanks for doing this. Is it okay if we use this recording of your story publicly?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Can you or anyone you mention in your story face legal prosecution or get into trouble for anything that you share?
No.
Sweet. Will you spell your first name so I don't mess it up?
Derrick.
Thank you. And then from there, you identify however you want. The floor is yours. I'll just be back here enjoying it.
All right. So, my name's Derek, addict, 45 years old. I came from a pretty good household. Father was an engineer. My mother was criminal justice major. They provided a great house. So I don't have a really sad beginning or anything. Nothing that really started me out with a handicap. We did a lot of moving around. So as far as stability in one place, that really wasn't a thing. Went to 4 different elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 3 different high schools in 4 years. But from there, I enlisted into the military. And I suppose my story starts between those latter 2 parts. At the age of 14, that's when I started drinking. We had moved up to Pennsylvania, and it was a new environment, a little hectic environment, a lot of issues I wasn't prepared for. And I ended up getting in with a group of friends that were really good people. They weren't bad kids, but, wayward, broken homes, this, that, and the other, trying to fit in. So when I started drinking and smoking, and, we hung out mostly at the college. We was up in a town called Indiana, and there's not much in that town except for a Walmart, a Ponderosa, a mall, and a university. So that's where we did all our hanging out, all our partying. 14 years old, I'm hanging out with college kids and drinking all night, staying up, still trying to get to school in the morning, and that became our routine. And surprisingly enough, all the stores would sell us alcohol. It made it real easy. I could walk into pretty much everybody knew us, so we could walk in any store and buy liquor. Wasn't really a problem. Within a year, I was smoking weed, but didn't really affect my schooling, didn't affect my grades. I was into sports, loved basketball, loved to run. And back in those days, you could actually pick up at a gas station what was called mini thins, little ephedra tablets. I used to use them for running, helped me breathe a little better. Didn't know what I was really taking the whole time, but that became a habit. I started living on those tablets and wasn't getting any sleep. When I went into the Army, that's what I used to do. Remember, my first real issue was at 19 years old, been up for 2 or 3 days popping those pills. And about 2 a.m, I got a phone call. And I go to answer the phone out in the hallway, a little payphone out in the hallway in the barracks. I remember answering the phone, and next thing I know, I'm on the floor and everybody's in a circle around me. I passed out. Didn't expect that, but didn't really think much of it either. My first day in the barracks was November 9th of 96. And I remember that day because it was the night of the Tyson fight when he first got out of prison. That was his first fight. And that's when I showed up at the barracks. Little shy kid, didn't know my ass from my elbow at the time, and go up inside this place, and it's full of rowdy ass people, and they're all jumping and hooting and hollering, drinking, and I didn't want no part of it. Didn't know anybody, so I pretty much went in my room and just stayed there all night just to stay out of the way. And about 7 a.m, I had nothing else to do, so I decided I'm gonna go do some laundry. Go down to the laundry and put my laundry in, and when I'm on my way back upstairs, I hear this guy from the end of the hallway yell out my name. Well, he didn't say my name, he said Crib. Now, I don't know anybody here. So I look down the hallway, and there's this dude way at the other end, and military barracks real long. And the guy's calling me, so I go down there. First thing he tells me when I get there is, "Hey, I heard you from Chicago." I don't know how he knew this, but yeah. He said, well, from now on, this is where you drink. You drink with us. What does that mean? He puts a beer in my hand and tells me by choice or by force, you drinking that beer. That started a lifestyle for the next few years. Well, next 20 years, actually. But it's all we did, you know, drink and run and drink and work and drink some more. Didn't take long till I started getting in trouble, you know, lost rank, lost money, and starts a little downward spiral of depression and whatnot, but it wasn't nothing I couldn't bounce back out of. When I get out the Army, my parents were going through a divorce. So I decided to help my mom get on her feet. And me and my older adopted brother, we go back with my mom. We moved around a little bit more, Mississippi, Tennessee, till we finally landed in Texas. By the time we got to Texas, my brother had left. He had gone back to Pennsylvania. So it was me, my mom, and my younger brother at that time. And this is where it got real fun, because the house we moved into was next to the house of a drug dealer. Didn't know it, but I got to know the guy, and he was real cool. You know, I loved him. He was a great guy, and he liked me, and he just wanted to show me a good time. You know, I'm new to Texas, and he wanted me to get the feel for the place. So he took me up under his wing and took me out, started showing me around, taking me to the clubs and whatnot. But he was never really ever trying to force anything on me. He was just hanging out. So, you know, I ran with it. Got to know some people. Then one day at a party, I get introduced to cocaine. And it was real weird how it happened, but it happened. You know, and not wanting to punk out, yeah, I went ahead and did it. And he gave it to me, just gave me an 8-ball. Like it wasn't nothing. And from that day on, you know, he took a shine to me. Every time I saw this guy, he used to give me cocaine. You know? It was a weekend thing, it was a party thing, wasn't no big deal. Didn't seem like it would be a problem at all. And that went on for a while, you know. Right around 2003, the company I was working for at the time, they decided to outsource all of their production to Mexico. So we're about to get put out of a job. But it was a good deal at the time. It seemed like a good deal because I learned that if you're ever working for a company that outsources their job and you lose employment to Mexico, you automatically qualify for unemployment benefits, you know, for a duration of time, free schooling. And all I could think about was getting easy money and plenty of time to do cocaine, party. The girl I was with, she, I didn't know it at the time, but the friends she was hanging out with had a bad meth habit. And at the time, I didn't know anything about meth. So we partied a lot. We ran around, wasted all the money we had, ended up losing the place we were in, had to move in with her folks. And at the time, I still wasn't really bad. You know, it was still just my little weekend thing. We moved in with her folks, and one of the guys I was working with, he's the one that introduced me to crack, because I'd been doing cocaine for about a year at that point. But at a party one night, he showed me how to cook it up. We smoked. And I'm doing my crack, she's doing her meth, but I'm still functioning somewhat, you know. I'd be lying if I was saying I was doing good, but I was still functionable. Anyway, it was winter of 2005 when everything went bad. You know, she took my car. She left me stranded at a house for several days with no food, no water, while she went up on a stealing binge. And when she showed back up, it's like she didn't care. it was a rough patch, led into some more depression. We went through a breakup after that because of that. And that's when I fell off. I fell into crack real bad for about a year. But I was still able to work and whatnot. I was slowly coming apart. In 2006 is when I met my current wife, and things turned around a little bit. I was in a good place. I was putting my life back together. I'd laid the drugs down, and everything was real good for about 2 years. I was able to just quit cold turkey. But at 29 years old, I had become not only a husband, but a stepfather and even a step-grandfather overnight. It was a lot of pressure, and I was masking a lot of it because I was trying to be that good husband and hold a family together. So I was taking on more than I could handle, and I wasn't saying anything to anybody. But inside, the pressure was building up. Finally, I went to trucking school in 2008, got my CDL, and the first time I smoked crack again was at the trucking school. It was in a little shady part of town up in Fort Worth. Ran into somebody, got me a little bit, hit that, and it brought that taste back to me. I finished the school, got the job, went out, did my little over the road training, and when I got back to Austin, that beast took over again. For a couple of weeks, that's all I did. Went back out on the road, and now I'm feeding this habit. Then really wasn't big into over the road stuff. I didn't stay with that job long. I didn't like it, and trying to stay out there and feed a habit wasn't even in the plan. So I came back, and that's when I got a job on a tow truck local. Now, the tow trucks, I made great money, probably more money than I should have been making because I wasn't able to handle it well. Went out and started making money, and I'm paying bills again. I'm handling everything, and it really wasn't going good. Found myself hanging out with the wrong people and sitting in a tow truck on the side of the highway smoking crack. And you deal with a lot of police officers in this job, especially when you're dealing with wrecks and whatnot. And wasn't nothing worse than pulling up on the scene of an accident, having to get out with a road guard vest at 2 a.m, talk to an officer while you're dripping sweat, that kind of, that's just bad business. I was able to leave that job, clean up again for a little bit, go back and pull myself together. In 2009, a year later, I got a job with the school district, driving a school bus. Everything's good again. About 6 months into that, pressure at home starts building up. I relapse, and this became a trend. I would do good for a little bit, and then I'd fall back off. Found myself one day out at a training facility for the city and working with a bunch of police and kids. And I'm sitting they're outside the bus doing their little field day, and I'm sitting on the bus smoking crack. And I remember thinking how stupid this is. I'm sitting here, but you just can't quit like that. You have to keep powering through. And I kept getting away with it. And the more I get away with it, the more comfortable I felt with it. I would start doing dumb stuff, out in public. I catch on myself, and again, I clean up. Got a better job working for the city, driving buses and driving city buses. That worked good. I went clean for about 2.5 years, from 2010 to early 2013. Now, in 2013, I started having marital problems. Me and my wife weren't getting along, and my using wasn't helping. But I get into these arguments with her, and that's when I started doing the disappearing game. Up until this time, I had never actually vanished for any point in time. But we got into a fight one night, and I found myself up at a strip club. And I go inside, and one of the strippers, she had a habit too, and asked me if I wanted to leave with her. Didn't have nothing else to do, and I didn't want to go home, and she had plenty of dope, so it sounded like a great idea, you know? And I go back with her, spend all night smoking dope, and it started a whole new habit of me staying gone for days at a time. Hadn't said nothing to nobody, and I'm leaving a bunch of people home. My wife, my mother don't know what's going on. Kids, ain't nobody seen me. Now, I was always slick about how I did my stuff, or I thought I was at least. I used to hide my shit right there in plain sight. And I'm gone on one of my trips, you know, up at the motel, and my wife at home, unbeknownst to me, had just gotten fed up of it, and she started packing my stuff up. Went and pulled my stuff out the closet, and one of my crack pipes fell out, hit the ground, shattered. And that's how she found out where I had been going and what I was doing. And I'll tell you like this, you know, the only thing that actually kept me even halfway straight when I was functional was that shame, you know, not wanting anybody to know what I'm doing, not wanting anybody to know. And once it came out, she went and told my mother right away, out of concern. I understand that now, but back then it was just the worst thing she could do to me. And I remember I'm sitting up at this old ragged out motel, and I'm sitting in the room and peeking out the window, you know, like we do. I'm peeking out the window, and I swear I see my mom's truck pull into the yard. So I jump back, and I'm telling the people in the room, be quiet, be quiet. I'm out the peak hole like crazy. And they're looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I swear, I think I see my car out there. Dude in the next room, he goes over and just pulls the curtain open, looks outside. He sees them, they see him, they recognize him. He's in there. Next thing I know, my wife is coming up the stairs. She's banging on the door. She burst in the room. There's a girl living in a tent. There's another girl. It's crazy. I'm hiding behind a dresser in the TV stand, hiding from her while she's in the room asking them where I'm at, and they're trying their best to cover for me. But yeah, she made the comment that if I didn't come out, she's calling the cops. So gig's up. I come out. And you know, that's when I had to actually face the music. Now, mind you, we're only at 2013 at this point, so there's a lot of story left, of course. But, you know, here I am trying to play the whole game where I'm going to fix everything. And I go to my job. And I'd never gotten popped on a piss test, never got even called for a piss test. So I try to play the smart role like I always do. And I figure, you know, if I go to them and tell them I need help, they can't fire me, you know? I'm gonna pull that number, and it worked. All right? I was able to put myself into treatment the first time, but I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to be sober. I wasn't doing it because I needed to do it. I was doing it trying to play damage control. You know, not realizing that, you know, the shock I had put on my wife, she wasn't ready for that. The shock I put on my mother, she wasn't ready for that. So I go into treatment thinking the world's going to be good, and spend 2 weeks in inpatient, start going to outpatient, and I can't figure out why nobody's trusting me, why nobody's dealing with me, why they're still giving me all the hell that they give me, you know? It didn't take but maybe 6 months for the marriage to fall apart. About 2 months after, well, no, it was about I got on April. About 6 months for the job to fall apart, and the marriage fell quickly after that. Yeah. Next thing I know, I'm homeless. My wife filed for divorce. I'm not getting along with family. Everything was going bad. That's when the trouble with the police starts. You know, in this particular time, I tried to clean up again. I stayed clean from April till November when everything fell apart. And when it fell apart, I didn't go back to crack. I had a buddy of mine that he was dealing meth, and everything changed at that point. I had found a new gig, so I was getting it cheap, and it was all readily available. And one of the guys I knew from the rehab, he'd come back and he had been dibbling and dabbling, you know, trying to get powder cocaine and whatnot. And he came by the house. When he came by, you know, all I had was the meth. So didn't have a job, didn't have an income, but this guy had money. And I took advantage of him because I was charging him wholesale prices for what I was getting, bottom dollar. So I had a steady stream of dope. And long story short, I ended up ruining his marriage with his wife and separating him from his kids, bleeding him dry. And I started running with a bunch of folks I knew better to be messing with. And next thing you know, I'm selling stolen equipment. And yeah, just, you know how that goes. You know. End up running across the law, and they came trying to get me, and me being too smart, you know, I saw them coming. They couldn't really pin anything on me, but at the same time, they knew what I was doing. End up getting into a tussle with them. Wound up with a broken orbital socket, broken nose, broken jaw, top row of teeth knocked out, broken ribs, road rash like you wouldn't believe, tased 7 times. Whole ordeal, which just started a big hatred between me and them, because at that point I got real cocky and started getting stupid. You know, stuff that anybody in their right mind just knew not to do. Didn't make sense to me. I'm gonna do it. Led to more arrest, time in jail. I beat all those charges. Funny enough, I beat all those charges. So I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't learning anything at all. By the time I got out, you know, everybody I was running with, they put me on, I ended up going on 2 years, I signed for 2 years probation, but I was able to talk my felony charge of possession down to a misdemeanor, attempted to possess. And I had another felony charge sitting behind it. Of course, when I signed the probation, I didn't stop using. So within a couple of months, I'd already failed my piss test. My PO tells me that she's gonna send me back to the jail. But the cops had bundled so much information on the arrest, plus having held me for 4.5 months before sending me to court. When I talked it down to a misdemeanor, the judge tells me, look, I'm gonna send you to SMART, which is the state-sponsored rehab facility. It says, if you complete the 5-month stay in SMART, I'll throw out your other felony case. You got a deal. And already in my head, I'm already thinking, you know, if I can finish out this 5-month stay in here and he throws out my case, I don't need probation. I can drop that because the most they can give me is 30 days in jail. I'm back to using again. Just that easy. Because that's exactly what I did. Did the 5-month stay, got out in April of 2017. In May, I told the probation officer, I want to go back to court. I don't want to finish the probation because I still had 1.5 years. Why would I trade 1.5 years of probation when I can do 30 days in jail? So they let me out, get off. When I get back out there, my wife had heard that I cleaned up. She comes back to me. I'm not clean, but I'm not telling her. She remarries me. And here I am trying to play it off, and I'm still a hot mess. From 2017 to 2021, I put that woman through pure hell. And she kept telling me that she's gonna stick with me. She's not gonna leave me, because she felt bad about the way she left me. It wasn't until last August that I was able to sit back and see myself. In that last year, I spent $42,000 on nothing but dope and hookers and crazy shit with nothing to show for it. And at this point, I finally broke down crying. She had already looked up rehab facilities that would take me in and get me right. And the moment I realized that I'm sitting in the truck with a needle in my arm, dead broke. Now, mind you, I got everything I need, and I'm wasting it. It was at that point I finally had enough. I finally had enough. I go into rehab for the first time with the intention of cleaning up. I actually come out with the intention of being clean. And everything changed just because my intention changed. Jails couldn't do it. Homelessness couldn't do it. It was just pure intention. A friend of mine that I was in treatment with before, she got me into my first meeting, and I've been going ever since. She's the one that keeps me on track, and that's where I met my sponsor at. And he works with me, he's patient with me, but I'm able to keep a good focus now. I got a house, got a car, got everything that I lost back. My wife's right there in the other room, kisses me every day, hugs me, tells me how proud she is, and everything's coming back together. It's just a little bit of intention and desire. It's all working again. That's my story in a nutshell. That's what I got.